Now, folks, he said this 25 years ago. Do you realize that these are the exact same arguments now that everybody in the media uses? Everybody who wants to know anything or say anything or get up and talk about. We know these arguments don't have merit, but go check out what they're saying in the rest of the world, folks. They believe this is the argument, and he's the one that made it 25 years ago. And lastly, he concludes that the overriding and overwhelming disputes concerning this city will require an international interdependency. Isn't that an interesting phrase? As the only way to achieve lasting peace. Does that sound familiar? Does it sound to you like it does to me, like a cry for a world governing body or a world government? Now, in the very introduction of this book, he boldly and deliberately states that his presentation of these facts are important to him personally because of his, quote, important part in Jerusalem's historical heritage by merit of his, quote, Hashemite Kingdom Association. In the cover of the book, folks, he says, I'm the guy, because after all, I've got historical heritage to Jerusalem because of my Hashemite lineage. Incidentally, you may not find this interesting, but I find it extremely interesting. Israel became recognized as a state on May 14th, 1948. We all use that date. However, that's technically inaccurate. On that date is when America and other nations recognized. The actual date of November 29th, 1947 was when the UN partition plan was adopted by the General Assembly by international vote. Check me out, historians, of which Israel then later recognized her own state declaration in 1948. So the point is this, don't miss it. Israel's birth, say birth. Israel's birth was technically linked to 1947. Oddly, yet perhaps prophetically, Elisan himself was born in 1947. Should it surprise us that as the God of Israel was at work in the earth, bringing birth to His final nation, people, and end-time plan, that Satan also was possibly at work in the earth, giving birth to his man of sin and his end-time plan? Just a thought. Now, Elisan became the president of the Club of Rome. How many of you have heard of the Club of Rome? Wave at me. I don't need to tell you that it's the number one think tank moving the world toward world government, do I? Do you know that already? That the Club of Rome is the #1 think tank. We're moving behind the scenes to bring the world into global government. And he was appointed the president of the Club of Rome in Madrid on November 28, 2000. I happened to have a copy of his speech that night. This is when he assumed the role as the president of the Club of Rome. Maybe he might say something interesting. Maybe he might say something significant. He said this: we come together in the context of universal values. I personally question the coinage of globalism and prefer the term universalism because we share in universal values. I recognize the work of one of our distinguished colleagues in the Club of Rome who refers continuously to one civilization with 10,000 cultures. We come together in the context of knowledge and of innovation and to speak of globalization as a fact which must be faced squarely. I call for an ethic of human understanding, for an ethic of human solidarity. He went on to say this: I would like to suggest that in today's troubled world, the interreligious reactions to events in many parts of the world, not least of all my own, which have now assumed hegemonial national dimensions, need a cool head and a warm heart, not to judge others, not to challenge the legitimacy of fear, but to offer a beacon of hope. Now, in meeting with my colleagues in the International Interreligious Foundation of the UK, I would like to assure you that as Jews, Christians, and Muslims, if we observe on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday strictly, we would never see each other. We then move to fear the folks back home. I recognize with great warmth and importance of developing peace in this troubled world. And I recognize in particular the words of a peacemaker of yesteryear, my colleague Shimon Peres, who said not so long ago that to achieve peace, we need to achieve peace at home. And I say here, we have to achieve peace with ourselves. We have to achieve peace with our neighbors. And we have to achieve and develop peace with the modern age. And I hope we are not leaping into the future when we speak only of peace with modernity. I hope we can also speak of bringing the old world into a new age. And he concluded by saying this: in this common human privilege which we all share, there are no privacies and no monopolies, no exclusive holiness, no peculiar peoples, only distinctive races and climates and living spaces and environments, and a rich diversity of cultures, all under God, in an equal benediction and in a comparable risk to their ever generous Lord. The excellence of Jerusalem is to have been and to remain one redoubtable of such capital cities, summoned as such to be the joy of the whole earth. And he sat down. Now you tell me why he talks about Jerusalem being the joy of the whole earth. You tell me how he says that there are no special monopolies and no exclusive holiness and no peculiar peoples. He's got an agenda. It's clear. Now let's quickly return to Daniel's prophetic words. Because he said this in Daniel 8:25. Through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. Crown Prince El-Hassan is personally committed to being a religious unifier and to bringing the three major world religions, Jewish, Islam, and Christianity, together. He says it over and over and over again. Go to his personal website, and in 5 seconds you'll find it. He personally, by the way, oversees numerous organizations founded for these interfaith aims and goals, along with personally hosting and moderating gatherings which bring all religious leaders and expressions together for dialogue and cooperation. I have documented, and I don't have time to give them all to you today, I have documented literally hundreds of speeches, actions, and gatherings that are far too numerous to reveal within this message, in which El-Hassan can be proven to be the single most influential spokesman for interfaith goals to promote peace among all world religions. I know that's a bold statement, but I can prove it in my upcoming book. I'll share the documentation. The point is this, folks. The coming man of sin will have the satanic ability and the empowerment to unite all religions of the world together. You know it. It's described during the tribulation period in Revelation 17 and 18. And oh, by the way, the very name and the place in the earth which God identifies with this false religious system is Babylon. This is his latest book. If you consider yourself a student of Bible prophecy, I challenge you, get your hands on this book and read it as I have done. I'm not selling any. I don't make a dime off it. You'll have to find it. If you claim to be a prophecy preacher, read this book. In this book, which is El-Hassan's latest book, it has come out post 9/11. And he